Okay, I think I'm live. Stephanie, Steph, Ava, and Nat, am I live? Can you guys? I don't go live that often, guys. I used to go live back in the day, but it's with what I do on YouTube, it's a lot easier for me to pre-film stuff because most of what I do is research based, and I get very distracted by the chat. So I've got Stephanie from Spiritual Perspectives of Our Great Awakening, moderating along with my friend Natalie from Questioning the Narrative and my friend Ava from Queen Midas Life Alchemist. All three of them have their own YouTube channels, so make sure you go ahead and check them out. I know that this time of day is a very strange time to be doing a live. I know it's dinner time and stuff like that, but my schedule's a little bit crazy. So this is why I'm doing it at this time. So this live will be up for replay for those who couldn't make it tonight. Totally fine if you couldn't, no big deal. But before we get into the questions, I think I told you guys I literally pre-filmed this video like three different times. And the first time I filmed it, it took me 2 hours to get through all the questions, but I was reading them cold. And as I was going through them, I realized there was a lot of repetitive questions or questions that had the same answer. So I'm going to try to kind of bring it down a little bit to a more reasonable time because 2 hours is a lot. Although Stephanie and Ava and I just filmed a 2 hour tarot card reading, which was really fun. And now I have the Backstreet Boys stuck in my head. So, anyway, all right. So, before we get started into the questions, I do want to give a special shout out to Sandy Kern, who made me this beautiful necklace. I wanted to show you guys. It's gorgeous. And she sent a beautiful letter explaining all the beads and everything. And Sandy does have an Etsy shop called Cupid's Wisdom. Cupid's Wisdom. So for those that are interested, I will put a link to her Etsy shop up on the community tab. I'll probably put a link once we're done and this goes up into the library. I'll probably go in and edit and put a link to her Etsy shop as well. This Sunday is my youngest niece's first birthday. So I have her birthday party in the morning. And then Sunday night, I have a grown up friend's birthday. So this is the first time that I've been to like a grown up party in about 2 or 3 years. So I'm going to be wearing this, Sandy, to the grown up party. So I'm very, very excited. I know that sounded bad. It's not one of those kinds of grown up parties, it's just a party with a bunch of grown ups. That's it. All right. So let's go ahead and get into some of these questions. Again, I'm going to try not to look at the chat while I'm doing this so I don't get distracted. I'm reading from the questions that people asked on Twitter and on YouTube. So we're going to go ahead to Twitter first. And these were all regarding yoga questions. So if that's not something you're interested in, it's totally fine to click off the video. No big deal. And the reason why I put this up is because I noticed there's some rather concerning comments that were made or have been made regarding yoga. And just as like everything in our world is totally inverted and jacked up, yoga is too. And so about 99% of the yoga you see in the world is not actual yoga. And so the first thing I'm going to suggest, if you guys are really interested in studying traditional yoga, which to me, that's what I practice, I'm through a lineage of traditional yoga. The first thing I would suggest anybody doing is getting yourself a copy of the Yoga Sutras. And I would suggest getting a commentary with it as well. Sri Swami Satchitananda, this is his commentary. I really like his commentary. He's one of my favorite commentaries. But there's also like Ram Dass has a commentary. I'm a huge Ram Dass fan. And Deskachar, Krishnamacharya's son, has a commentary. Get multiple copies if this is something you want to read through. I have multiple copies, but this is my favorite, is Sri Swami Satchitananda's commentary. So I would definitely first and foremost get the Yoga Sutras, because if you are exploring different yoga classes in the West, this is going to kind of be your guidebook. So the Yoga Sutras, they tell us that the Yoga Sutras are about 5,000 years old. Who knows? As you'll see tomorrow when I air the show I did with Stephanie and Ava, we have no idea what our real timeline is, but they are very old scripture, written by a sage called Patanjali. And the Yoga Sutras really just sum up the whole practice of yoga, which is yoga chitta vritti nirodha, which is basically the whole practice is learning how to understand that your thoughts are not you, and but your thoughts are affecting you, right? It's kind of like that whole don't believe everything you think. And so yoga chittam is the brain stuff. Vritti is thoughts, and nirodha is like nothing, avoid. So we're trying to get rid of the thoughts, right? Well, we can't really do that. So what yoga then takes it down to is bringing the mind to a one pointed focus. Okay. And so if you're going to a yoga shala or a yoga studio that's not following that direct lineage, then I would probably avoid that. And we're going to kind of get into that through the discussions and the questions. And I also want to say I did release a video this morning about some hyperextension in the elbow. Some of the hold on one second. So sometimes it is okay to make mistakes. My backstory with yoga is I took my first yoga class when I was in college. I was a runner at the time. I'd been a long distance runner in high school and throughout college, and that's just what I was. And I did not really know much about yoga, but I took it class. I thought it was something old people did because this was like the early 2000s. Like in the 90s in Georgia, there was no yoga, you know? So I just thought it was something old people did. I took a class and I felt really good afterwards. So I thought, you know what, I'm gonna get a yoga video because this was before DVDs. That's how I guess a lot of us are in that age range, right, where we remember VHS videos. And so at that point, I did not know anything about yoga. I didn't know anything about lineages or teachers. So I went to the video store to buy a video so that I could do yoga like once or twice a week to stretch me out from my running. Well, the only yoga person on the video that I recognized was Jerry Halliwell from the Spice Girls. So I literally started with a video from Jerry Halliwell from the Spice Girls doing yoga. And I did that for a while, and it wasn't for a while that I actually started to venture into studying it more as life got real and stress got really intense. And I started going to different studios. At that point, I didn't even know what a shala was. And so I did end up going through a vinyasa flow teacher training, which we're going to talk about. And it's like a 200-hour teacher training. And I started teaching some flow classes. Well, in the meantime, as you guys probably have guessed, I'm a nerd when it comes to I love philosophy. I love literature. And so I would come home in my free time. I would sit at my desk and literally read philosophy books. I read the Yoga Sutras over and over again. I started to study the Upanishads, the Vedic text. That's when I had read the Bhagavad Gita in school, but I went back and reread the Bhagavad Gita from the perspective of a yoga student. And I kind of had this like literal breakdown because I started realizing that what was being taught in this scripture about yoga, this ancient scripture, was not what was being taught in yoga classes. And so I kind of had this breakdown, and I felt integrity is something that's really important to me. It always has been. And so I kind of had this moment of panic where I didn't want to teach anymore. I didn't want to practice anymore because I felt like there was such a disconnect from what was happening in these studios versus what was being taught in the scripture. And there is even though we know the Bible is a little jacked up, there is a verse in the Bible that says, "Ask and you shall receive, seek and you shall find, knock and the door shall be opened unto you. Be careful what you wish for." Around that time is when I met my first Ashtanga teacher. And when I first started practicing Ashtanga, and I realized at that point that it was a lineage based yoga, I found what I wanted. I found what I was seeking. And so at that point, there's not many traditional Ashtanga teachers. And there's only 500 authorized teachers in the world. I'm one of them at this point. And so at that point, I started traveling back and forth to Philadelphia to practice with my first Ashtanga teacher, a man named David Garrigues. So I would go up there and I would literally bust my ass practicing with him. And then I would come back home and I would practice what he taught me at home. He would call me, text me, like keep in touch with me. And then over time, I decided that well, I had been told, I had Magdalene tell me, you need to go to India and study yoga. And so that's what I did. And so I got into my school in India with a letter of recommendation. We applied and I got in. I started going back and forth to India. And so, with any type of traditional or lineage based yoga, there's not going to be any what they call teacher trainings. Okay. In fact, for me, as an authorized Ashtanga teacher, if I were to be um, involved with the Yoga Alliance or involved in a teacher training, I would lose my authorization. So that's how serious the teachers of India take this stuff. So for any traditional yoga teacher like myself, we have gone through years and years of education. It's like a university. I didn't go to India just one time. I went to India many times, back and forth. Whenever the Shala would open for school to start, I would be back in India studying for months and months and months and months. And so that's the biggest difference that you're looking at between like a vinyasa flow, a contemporary class, and a traditional class is the level of education that the teacher has. For example, in my school, we don't just, I have to get up at 2 o'clock in the morning. I have to be at the Shala by 3:30 for Brahma Muhurta asana practice. 2 hours Mysore, and then I have to go and take my Sanskrit classes. Then I have to go take philosophy classes, chanting classes, you name it. I have multiple philosophy teachers in England, in India. So it's a lot. And so, and it's years and years and years and years of this. And you don't ever apply to be authorized. It's just something given to you. It's kind of like an honor. And so one day, my teacher just said, "You come to my office 2 o'clock p.m. You go and he authorizes you to teach." That means that he believes that you know enough to be able to bring forth the information. And so it's a huge honor and it's a huge responsibility. And so, but with that being said, in traditional yoga, I can't make someone a teacher. I have an assistant that kind of apprentices under me, but I can't make that person a teacher. They have to go to India themselves and go through the same thing I went through in order to potentially become a teacher. And so there are about 500 authorized teachers in the world. There are 3 authorized teachers here in Atlanta. I'm the only female that's authorized. We're the only authorized teachers in the state of Georgia. Atlanta is literally the only place in the state of Georgia we could teach, because if anywhere outside of Atlanta, we'd probably have crosses burning in our yard. So this is the only place that we can actually hold down a shala in the Bible Belt here. So there now from there's one level above authorized in that certification, and that's not the Yoga Alliance certification. David Garrigues was certified, so there's 50 people who are certified, and that just means they've been in India, spent over 10 years in India, and finished way far into the advanced series. So 50 people in the world are certified. Only 17 of them are women, because it's a lot harder for women, because the traditional asana practices, it's crazy compared to what you see in vinyasa flow classes. So the 3 traditional yogas in the world are Ashtanga, what I practice, my lineage, Iyengar, and Sivananda yoga. Those are the only 3 that are actual yoga practices. Everything else, everything else is considered, in a polite way, is considered contemporary yoga. In a realistic way, behind the curtains, the way we call it, fake yoga, or bastardized yoga. So that's everything from your vinyasa flows, your Bikram, all that kind of stuff. Now, with that being said, you can have fun in a vinyasa flow class, but you just have to know what you're getting into. And so we'll get into that a little bit when we get through these questions. I'm already seeing some questions about age and stuff. We'll get to that because I got that question a lot. All right. So let's go ahead and look at these questions. So Nicole asked on Twitter, "How the hell do you been like that? Maybe I'm too plump. Have an awesome day." Well, Nicole, I hope you're having an awesome day too. And actually, Stephanie and I were on Zublik's Dark Outpost this morning, and we kind of talked about stuff like what would be seen as physical limitations. And sometimes that is being too plump or being too skinny. Now, when I say this, I want everybody to understand that as a human being, because you decided to incarnate into a human existence, you are going to always have imbalances to work with. That's your friction, right? We need that friction to grow. We can't create light. We think about striking a match. There's friction. You can't create light without that friction. So don't be afraid of these quote unquote obstacles. They're just opportunities and something to work with. So how do you bend like that? Well, the first thing I want to talk about with the yoga asana, the postures, is that flexibility is fleeting. I'm pretty flexible now. When I first started practicing yoga, when I was in high school, I had back surgery, spinal surgery, and I went back to Melanie Kundalini yoga. I would stay away from, in my opinion. I just caught that, and I think I need to bring this up. The guy who started Kundalini yoga was a scam artist, and Kundalini is an all yoga. It's an all yoga, so it was. I would stay away from, in my opinion. That's my opinion. I'd stay away from it. They get you to hyperventilate, and they tell you it's by some pranayama that's really hyperventilation, and they tell you you're having an experience. It's just, I don't, that is one yoga I would say, in my own opinion, stay away from. Okay. And what we can talk about Kundalini a little bit later. But anyway, so with the yoga asana, with the flexibility. So when I first started practicing yoga, again, when I was 17 years old, I had spinal surgery. I have a scar on my lower back right now. So, and then I went immediately from that back to running. So I was pretty tight when I first started yoga. I was skinny. I've always been a little bit, I've never had a weight problem where I've had the opposite, going the opposite direction. But I could barely touch my toes. I mean, seriously, could barely touch my toes. And now at 39 years old, getting my leg behind my head is no problem. No problem whatsoever. And so things like flexibility, if we're looking at that, it's like strength and endurance. The more you work it, the more your body is going to open. Okay. Now, with that being said, and please hear me on that, with that being said, if your yoga teacher is telling you to get more flexible, don't go back to that yoga teacher. Not once has my teacher in India ever told me to get more flexible. Not once have I ever told a student to get more flexible, because flexibility is really not what we're looking for. What we're looking for is mobility. And with mobility, the primary action of mobility is strength. So you will have teachers tell you to get stronger, get stronger, get stronger, get stronger, get stronger. Okay. And that's what I focus on with my students. I don't care. I tell my students all the time, I don't care how flexible. I've seen it all. I have literally seen it all. I've seen people look like they're having an exorcism in the middle of the Mysore room. I have seen people do um oh no, with possessions by spirits, that is total church propaganda, which we're going to get into. That nothing makes me madder than that. You are not going to be possessed by spirits. We're going to get into that. Don't the church lies literally about everything. So do not even, yeah. So with flexibility, how your flex, what you can do with your body. I'm a very athletic person, so physical work does not is not hard for me. I'm very athletic. Pretty strong. I'm very coordinated. So physical work is not something that's really challenging for me. Okay. So with that being said, what you can do with your body literally has nothing to do with who you are as a human being. To be bad at yoga, be a bad person. That's how you're bad at yoga. I know there are a lot of flexible assholes out there. There are a lot of psychopaths out there that are extremely flexible. Okay. So I tell this to my students all the time. I'm not going to be impressed. If you can do a handstand, if you can get your legs behind your head, that doesn't impress me. Guess what? I can too. Doesn't impress me at all. I see it all the time. Be a nice person, be a kind person, be an integral person, be a person of courage. That's going to impress me. What you do with your body, that's just your practice. My teacher made fun of us once in a conference because we posted all these pictures on Instagram of us doing handstands. And he's like, "You've seen Cirque du Soleil? I've seen 6 times. They do it better. Like, you're just a yoga student. They do it better." All right. So, you have to take that into account. So with traditional yoga too, and this is again coming back to the asanas, with a traditional yoga system, the teacher is not choreographing the class. Let me repeat that. With a traditional yoga system, the teacher is not choreographing the class. Okay? So, there is something called the Yoga Karanta. This is a book that's been passed down for generations. This book is something that holds all the different series of yoga. So every asana has an alchemy, right? Every asana has an opening and a closing and a strengthening. There's always opposing forces, which we can get into, where it's strength and movement of blood and strengthening, and which kind of mirrors the opposing forces that we're living in, where we're in a mortal body. We're in immortal beings in a mortal body. There's nothing more opposing forces than that. That's what creates the friction, right? So with the Yoga Karanta, there are 6 different series of asana. And that's what we do in an Ashtanga. We do the 6 different series. So primary series is called Yoga Chikitsa because it is physical therapy. And it can take up to 5 years to really work through primary series. Okay. And so, and we, in a traditional class, the teacher isn't leading the class. It's done in what we call a Mysore style. And so you come into the shala. So the shala, which, by the way, you should never call it a yoga studio. It's a yoga shala. A shala means a school. It's a yoga school. So in traditional yoga, we practice in Brahma Muhurta hours, which is really between 2 a.m. and 6 a.m. But here in the Western world, we'll open the shala around 5 a.m. and we close it at 8 a.m. Okay, so you're going to come into any time in that window of time. You're going to come into the shala and you're going to start your practice, and the teacher is going to work with you one-on-one through a direct series. Okay, so there's nothing that I'm giving you that I'm making up. It's coming from a series that's been done for hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of years. So with that being said, someone just asked, what's a good style of yoga for beginners? Well, anything that's traditional, because with beginner, if you came in as a beginner to the shala, if I was still teaching every day, I would start you on the first day with just Surya Namaskar A, and I would work you through Surya Namaskar A. And once I felt like you had a good grip on that, then we'd add on. So we're constantly going to be adding on to your practice. Primary series itself, if I do primary series, it takes me about an hour. But for somebody who is new and has just learned primary series, it would take about 90 minutes, right? And so then you move to second series. And so it's a continual work. So if you don't know what Mysore is, Mysore style, you can Google YouTube videos of Mysore rooms. And that is the best way to practice. So if you're a beginner, you just go, and if you want yoga, traditional yoga, you're going to start in like a Mysore style class where the teacher is working with you one-on-one. Traditional yoga is night and day different from what you see in the Western world, the 99% of yoga you see in the Western world. Okay. Now, with that being said, if you want to start with a more vinyasa flow, contemporary, bastardized kind of watered down yoga, that's fine too. That's how I started. Everybody's journey is different. And so whatever steps you take, even if you look back and you're like, God, I wish I never taken that class, it's okay. You learn from it. You learn something. Right. And so I'm just kind of giving you the little differences there so you kind of know where you're headed. All right. So as far as like the yoga asana, and back to Nicole's question, how do you bend like that? It's a work in progress. We practice 6 days a week. I am on my yoga mat between 2, sometimes up to 3 hours, 6 days a week. And so the body will obviously change over time. Now, with that being said, many teachers will tell you that there are 6 series in all of Ashtanga Yoga so that everybody is meeting challenge. You always want to be in a place where you're meeting some sort of challenge, some sort of friction. So for me, primary series came very easily for me when I started learning Ashtanga Yoga. I learned it very quickly. When I got to second series, that's when I ran into a lot of challenges because there was a lot of really deep back bending. In fact, there's a posture called Kapotasana in second series. You're on your knees, you lean back and catch your ankles. It's like a horseshoe back bend. It's an incredibly deep back bend. And I actually punched a teacher once. A teacher pulled me into it and I came out and smacked him in the face because I get very triggered by back bending. So that's where a lot of my work was in second series. Now, with that being said, there's only one person living right now that I know of that has completed all 6 series, and that is my teacher in India. So, I mean, third series, Advanced Series A is beautiful. I posted a little clip of it, of Advanced Series A on Twitter the other day. And then you get to Advanced Series B, which is fourth series, and it looks like a damn exorcism. It is disgusting. I cannot stand watching fourth series. It makes me like it's just so gross to see some of those postures, but everybody has to be challenged. So if you're someone who's super flexible, someone who's super strong, who is athletic, whatever, you might have to get to third or fourth series before you hit the wall, before you get triggered, before there is friction. Okay. And that's what we're finding. We're looking for that friction. Okay. So with that being said, my teacher, David Grieg up in Philadelphia, he used to say that people who struggled in primary series, they were the lucky ones. because their karma came up early. Their karma came up early. So don't ever, ever think you can't go to a shala because you're a little overweight or you're tight or you're not strong. All a yoga shala is a yoga school. That's where you're going to learn. The first class I took, I could not even touch my toes. Okay. Every teacher you meet was a beginner at some point. The reason why I have to continually practice is because at some point I'm going to have to go see my teacher again, right? I have to be accountable to my teacher. And so don't ever fear going into a yoga shala because you don't think you're flexible enough or you don't think you're fit enough. That's ridiculous. That is absolutely ridiculous. We want you there. We want you there. We want you to learn. We want you to be there with us. So don't ever freak out about that. It's not if you go into a yoga studio or yoga shala and you feel a bunch of ego, that's probably not the shala for you. Okay. A practice like Ashtanga will humble you, 100% humble you. So if you're practicing Ashtanga, you should be pretty humble because you had your ass handed to you multiple times. It's very common to hear the F bomb dropped all through the shala, people, and it's so early in the morning, most people have their yoga pants on backwards, people come out looking like Albert Einstein because it's so humid in the room, the hair is frayed. So just find somewhere where you feel comfortable and understand that teacher does not care what your athletic ability is. All right. They're there to teach you yoga, and yoga is about learning you're using the tool of yoga, the asana, to study yourself. That's all the yoga asana is. The posture practice is a tool to study yourself, because nothing's going to trigger you more than your own body, than being forced to be in your own body. So if we think about building a house, what are some tools we have to build a house? I've never built a house, but a hammer, right? I'm assuming we're going to need a hammer. Well, it's not about the hammer, it's about the house. You're just using the hammer to build the house. All you're doing with the yoga asana is using the postures to learn about who you are, beyond the ego, beyond the thoughts that you have in your own head. Okay. So please, you're not going to a yoga studio to like learn gymnastics. You're not going there to, try out for Cirque du Soleil. For most of us, that ship sailed a long time ago, right? You're not going there to be a rocket. You're going there to study yourself. So please do not fear walking into a yoga room, whatever your condition is. Where if you are, and this is going to come up because a lot of people are asking about their age, if your heart is beating and you are breathing, then you are young enough to start yoga. It doesn't matter, especially in a traditional style like Mysore. You're not following a lead class. You're practicing at your own pace with a teacher working with you one-on-one. So you don't need to worry about that. And I'll tell you, there are some people in India I practice with who are like in their 70s, and they're badasses. So don't even worry about your age at all. In fact, Jan, she said, I was a gymnast in high school, still strong, ready to start yoga the right way. But I am now 63, yoga for seniors. Bryce, but you just go to a shala. It doesn't matter. Your age doesn't matter. Age ain't nothing but a number anyway. If you have a body, if you're breathing and your heart is pumping, you're young enough to do yoga. Okay. So same thing with Sarah. She said, you're 60. You're young enough to do yoga. My mom's in her 60s and she used to come to my classes all the time, my Mysore classes. So trust me, we have people of all ages in our shalas. Trust me, you're fine. Actually, one of the students at Ashtanga Yoga Atlanta is, I always tell our courses that he is, in my opinion, the most advanced student we have because he has cerebral palsy. There is asanas that he's not going to be able to ever do because he has cerebral palsy. He's already walking into the shala with a lot of limitations, and he comes in every single day and he works his ass off. He never complains. So in my opinion, even though he'll never finish primary series, he is more advanced than the person practicing third or fourth series. Okay. So it is about you using the purpose of the practice is to find the friction and to work with that resistance. I think I've told you guys before, again, David Greek, when I would be up in Philadelphia practicing with him, the young girl, like 22, 23, fit, young, probably was a cheerleader, gymnast, came in, could do the handstands, all that stuff. It didn't really impress him. Okay, next posture, whatever. But if a 60-year-old, 70-year-old man came in who was overweight and couldn't touch his toes, David would get so excited. He would say, now we have something to work with. Now we have something to work with. So see it that way. That really taught me a huge lesson. right? So these limitations, these obstacles we have, age, tightness, extra weight, whatever, all that is something to work with. And isn't that interesting? Because that's where the juice is. That's where things get interesting when you find that resistance. And aren't you lucky? Aren't you lucky that you have that thing to work with? Because some of these other people don't. And trust me, as I said, there are a lot of flexible assholes out there, right? Okay. So let's see. I've got State National said never done yoga, but I want to learn, but I can't afford classes. What's a good resort online? Any advice? Thanks. Okay, so I got this a lot. And if this was 2017, 2018, I would probably tell you a totally different answer. But seeing that we are literally living through the strangest time in our history right now, there's going to have to be some push and pull here. So traditionally, it is not acceptable to learn without a teacher. There's a lot of reasons for this. One is very basically you could hurt yourself. You need somebody that's going to be able to adjust you and guide you physically. But sometimes hurting yourself is part of your karma, so that's a whole other topic. Another thing is in the practice of yoga, because we're working with the mind, we're trying to work through the ego. And if you don't have a teacher there to humble you, like traditional teachers are not reading you poetry. I know in some of the vinyasa flow classes, they put on this very sweet teacher voice and they read you poetry and they rub your shoulders. That does not happen. That does not happen in traditional yoga, my friend, at all. My teacher will literally in the Mysore room in India, if it looks like you've gained weight, he'll be like, oh, belly coming. Like he'll call you on your shit. And he'll be like, where's your mind? Where's your mind? They're not. And that's how I have to be as a teacher. You have to be tough love because you have to you have to hold the student accountable that they're not backing out of something because the ego is driving that, right? So you need that so that your ego doesn't explode. However, we are in a very interesting time in our timeline. And if your yoga studios in your area are requiring this or like paperwork, I wouldn't go to that studio anyway because part of yoga is learning seeing the truth through the illusion, and obviously they missed that memo. But I understand that, so I will put a link in on the community board, and I will also tag it once this is done. I'll put it in the description box of a teacher I trust who has a half primary series on YouTube that you can start to watch and follow. Okay. With that being said, I wouldn't try to do the whole half primary series in one setting. Okay. That's a lot of work. Again, it takes about 5 years to work through full primary series. And you're also welcome to ask me any questions you want. If you want to go to a class, but money is an issue, that's no problem. There's a lot of shalas out there that will work with you. We have both places where I teach, there are students that are doing like a karmic exchange. They call it, well, they'll come in and like maybe help clean the studio for free tuition. Or maybe if you have a big social media platform, you can help them market and they'll give you free tuition. Or if you need a discount, a lot of teachers, you have to remember that a lot of, am I frozen? Okay, see, all right. I'm just gonna keep going then. Stephanie or Ava or Natalie text me if I am frozen. So there are a lot. So teachers are also business owners, brick and mortar business owners. And so if you go and talk to them, they will usually work something out with you. All right. Especially knowing what's gone on these past few years and understanding the predicament that we're all in. Let's see. Okay, cool. Steph just texted me and said I wasn't frozen. All right, so you can always go and talk to teachers about that. And there are some yoga shalas that offer scholarships. My friend up in Ohio offers a scholarship in his shala, so you can always go and inquire about that. And I know a lot of businesses, yoga businesses that do that. So don't feel like just because you don't have the finances, you can't go to a studio. You can always find one that will work with you. Okay. All right. Whenever I've tried yoga, I always wondered if I'm doing it right. Like, am I using correct form? Is my leg straight or do I just think it is? Stuff like that. Also, this isn't, bar workouts. Okay. Yeah. So Liz, I will put a link to the bar work. Actually, Steph, will you, put, in the link, Marnie Alton's, bar workout? If that's okay, Steph, just the 45-minute one up on, okay, so Marnie Alton's great. The reason why I like her is because she obviously has studied a lot. She knows a lot about inner, that's cool stuff. Yeah. She knows a lot about energetic body. She's working with your pelvic floor, which is what we call mola bandha. So it does help with the strength stuff. And actually, I have Steph doing a lot of bar stuff right now, and it's really good. So we'll put that in the link. So if you're doing it right, you need a teacher to help you with the alignment. Now, the thing about alignment is you're only going to get so close at certain times, and the body's going to take some time to kind of mold into and evolve into that alignment. So, Liz, at that point, if you're really concerned about your form, find a teacher. Find a teacher to help you because they're going to see things that you're not seeing. All right. Any specific different poses for women recovering from surgery? And yeah, okay. So these issues, we do have some women who've had some pelvic issues from childbirth. Uh, no specific poses. You just need to go and talk to the teacher. And if you're doing something like a traditional yoga, the teacher will have you in a Mysore room again, so you're working at your own pace. And so please remember that we're not mind readers. So if you do have something going on, please talk to the teacher. Most of the time, any type of issues you're having with your body are coming from your mind, though, but that doesn't mean we don't still work around what we can at that moment until you can evolve into opening that area or strengthening that area. So anything like that with surgeries, all that kind of stuff, just talk to the teacher and let the teacher help you. Okay. All right. For beginners, how often? 3 times a week, every day? That depends, Renee. So I practice 6 days a week, but I've been doing this for a really, really long time. So don't compare somebody's chapter 10 to your chapter 1. Now, I tell my beginner students that if you are not used to exercising and you come all the way, you come to yoga, I would not do the 6 days a week right away because you don't want to overwhelm your nervous system. So 3 days a week, 3 days a week is the minimum that you can do to see change. 3 days a week is the minimum. So if you're new to exercising and you do 3 days a week for like a month and then add the fourth day in and then slowly build up to adding the fifth, sixth day in. Now, with that being said, if you've been exercising for a while and you're used to the discipline, you could probably start doing 6 days a week right away. It just depends. Every case is different. So just wherever you are, meet yourself where you are and then go from there. But yes, 3 days a week is the minimum to see results. All right. Maybe go over the styles, types of yoga, what types are a good place to start, and how can each help your mind and body. Any pointers on finding a good teacher? So again, the 3 traditional yogas, Ashtanga, Iyengar, and Sevananda. Now there are knockoffs of Ashtanga, Iyengar, and Sevananda too. So if you see an Ashtanga teacher training advertisement, it's a knockoff, it's a scam because all Ashtanga teachers should come from India. Period. End of story. So don't get fooled and scammed. Now a good place to start would be just to start. Go and I said this in the video I pre-filmed, and I'm going to reiterate it, even though I'm not going to air that video. You can have fun with it too. Like it's okay to make a mistake. It's okay to go to a studio and take a class and be like, that really sucked. Like it's okay to do that. That's how we learn. So don't be afraid to like try a class because it might not be traditional. That's how you learn. That's how I learned what was what. All right. So don't be afraid. Have fun with it. Right now, what types are a good place to start and how can each help your mind and body? So in traditional yoga, I know we see this a lot in fake yoga. We see the studios that it's like Baskin Robbins where you go in and you could take this class for this and that class for this, and it's like the 39 flavors. All yoga is doing the same thing. It should be doing the same thing. It's all working on your mind. It's all balancing the body. So that is not even an equation in traditional yoga. Like, what are these good for? No, no, no. They're all doing the same thing. They should all be coming from the Yoga Sutras. They should all be coming directly from the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, okay? Which is working on the mind, which then will start to balance the chakra system, the bandhas, all that kind of the meridians, everything like that. So, if you go to these contemporary classes, you're going to see like a hip opener, a heart opener. All that should be happening anyway in your class. Okay. So, and you want to balance things. So, like if you're going to a class, and remember this in a traditional yoga class, the teacher's not choreographing it, it's coming from the Yoga Karanta. All right. So, if the teacher's choreographing it, there's lots of places where mistakes can be made because you don't want to end the practice in a non neutral position. So, for example, in the primary series, you're going to have like a posture Ardha Baddha Padmottanasana, which is then going to be followed by Tiryan Mukha Ekapada Paschimottanasana. These are postures that balance each other, right? And the next posture is a neutral posture. Okay. And so it's following a pattern, right? So if you got the leg extended one way in one posture, then it's going to be extended the other way in the next posture to neutralize the muscle and neutralize the energy. And so if the teacher is not educated on that or doesn't understand that, you run a risk of coming out of that class unbalanced. Now, with that being said, again, don't be afraid to make mistakes because that's how we learn. So if you see a teacher that's advertising like hip opening classes, well, that's great. You're going to open your hips, but what about your upper body? They need to be balanced. They need to be balanced, right? So if your hips are too open and you're not working on your upper body, then all of that tension is just going to ride up to the upper body and it's not going to really go anywhere. It's just going to move. We're looking to work through it all. And so I would just generally look for a style of yoga you like and stick to that and don't worry so much about the different flavors of hip opener, heart opener, all that stuff because it's just going to get you in a tailspin. Okay? I hope that makes sense. Pointers on finding a good teacher, look at their resume. So if they have on their resume is like a teacher training, I would avoid that. Every teacher should have a specific teacher. So even if they haven't been to India, still doesn't mean they're not a good teacher. Okay. So look at their resume. If they don't have a teacher themselves, then I would avoid that. Every teacher has a teacher. I have a teacher, right? So, yeah, Ramona, I will put up a link on, I'll type them out in the community board, the 3 types of yoga. Okay. Ashtanga, Iyengar, and Sivananda yoga. All right. So if I cannot find authorized instructors, can I do it on my own? Again, Teresa, the correct answer is no, you need a teacher, but we're living in a weird time. So I will post a link to on the community tab to a teacher I actually know from India that has a half primary series on YouTube, and that is an okay place to start for now, seeing that we're in this very strange timeline war. So all right, Josie, you said, let's see here. I know they invert everything. So is yoga or a form of it mentioned in the Bible as the healthiest of exercises for your mind, body, and soul? Perhaps in one of the hidden or lost books. Yes. So, first of all, I would be very weary of the Bible. We've been talking a lot about that and doing some deep dive. There's a lot of manipulation in the Bible, but yes, there is a missing book of the Bible where Joshua ben Joseph, the real Jesus, does teach his disciples yoga. That is mentioned. In the canonized Bible itself, yoga isn't mentioned at all. But there's a book called The Yoga of Jesus. It's written by Yogananda. It's a really, I don't know, Steph or Nat or Natalie or Ava, if you guys can go on Amazon or something and see if you can find The Yoga of Jesus by Yogananda. And if you can, and then put a link in the chat so people can see that. And it's a great book. I read it a long time ago where Yogananda goes through all the teachings of the Christ and compares it to the teachings of yoga and shows you where they're exactly the same. So yes, yoga very much yoga transcends all religions. Yoga can be put into all religions as a tool for all religions, but it also transcends it because it's a deeply spiritual personal practice where it's just you, yourself, and God, and that's it. In fact, in the Yoga Sutras, you'll see, especially in the first pada, you will see that he talks specifically about surrendering to God and showing you that when you're having anxiety, when you're having fear, that you're not surrendering to God because you're not trusting. And so it's all about that. So, funny, my church would not allow any yoga practice or meditation. Now I see clearly why they didn't want us. Yeah, because they want you to be vulnerable. They want you to be in a fear state, invert everything. So what the church tells you not to do, like, it's probably good to do it, right? Because when you find that independence, when you find that direct relationship with God, all of a sudden you don't need a pastor. You don't need a church. Vinyasa flow really yoga? No, Vinyasa flow is not real yoga. It's a contemporary form. It's a bastardized form of yoga, but it is very popular because it comes from the deep state. It's from the Yoga Lance. So that's why it's super popular. All right. So let's see here. All right. So Janice, you asked about Yoga Kriya. So yoga kriya, you said that you had a tarot card reader tell you need to do yoga kriya. So basically what the tarot card reader was asking you to do was do something to detox yourself. So there's lots of different yoga kriyas. For example, neti pot, that's one yoga kriya. There's one yoga kriya, and I would never do this because gross, where you can get a guru to take a cloth and stick it down your esophagus and then pull it up so you vomit. That's a yoga kriya. An enema is a yoga kriya. A colonic is a yoga kriya. So it's just a detox, right? And so I don't do a lot of yoga kriyas. And the reason why I don't do a lot of yoga kriyas is because I have a very intense asana practice. And so there is such a thing as too much detoxing. Right. So I already sweat my ass off in the morning. I'm already detoxing. I don't need to do anything else on top of that. And so you just basically what the tarot card reader was telling you is a detox is what you're looking for. Now, using a candle to meditate, that's a really great way to meditate. It's something I actually recommended this to someone the other day. It's a great place to start. You just light a candle and watch the flicker. It helps focus the mind. So that is a great place to start with some meditation. All right, let's see. First of all, I'd like to say thank you for your amazing research. Thank you so much. I was curious about chanting to Shiva, Vishnu, Durga, Govinda, Sita, Hanuman, Ram, etc. Does it bring unwanted spirits into my space? Also, I read somewhere that twist open the body for dark spirits to come in. Let's talk about those twists first. I'm sure the church told you that. But this is where we got to actually like critically think. If if twisting meant that dark spirits could come in, then all dancers, gymnasts, tennis players, baseball players are fucked. All right? Twisting is in every part of life. Take tomorrow in your day, I want you to see how many times you twist. Your spinal cord is joints, your ribs are joints. We were created to move. Yes, we were created to move. If God did not want us to twist, then why did he make us able to twist? All right? Don't be afraid of your body. In order to bring a spirit to be possessed, spirits are not just walking around the earth jumping into bodies. I know the church wants you to think that's what happens. That is not what happens. You have to invite a spirit in. And that most of the time, as I've been studying these grimoires, what I've learned, most of the time, that involves a very intense ceremony. Okay? A very intense ritual. So you are purposely asking for, we see it with the Black Eye Club, right? They've allowed something in. Spirits are not just hopping around in people's bodies. That we live in a world of consent. If you're not asking for a spirit to come into your body, it can't come into your body. Okay? Twisting is also extremely healthy for you. It's what releases a lot in your hips. It also part of what we're working with the internal organs is the internal organs flexibility. As we get older, our organs get a little bit tighter and stiffer and need to be detoxed. And so when we twist, we're able to get that flexibility out, squeezing out the towel, getting all the toxins out. Now we always twist right first and then left because the ascending colon is on the right side of the body. All right. So if we twist left first and then right, we run the risk of constipating ourselves. And constipation is not fun and it's certainly not cute. So we don't want to do that. Okay. We want to twist right first and left first, but we're allowing our colon to detox, right? Now, as far as the avatars that you mentioned here, Shiva, Vishnu, Durga, Govinda, Sita, Hanuman, Ram, etc. First of all, the difference, as according to one of the Hindu uncles at the temple, what he told me when I asked him what's the biggest difference between Christianity and Hinduism, and he said, "Oh, Christians think God came to earth one time. Hindus think God came to earth many, 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 many times." All right, they're not a polytheistic religion; they're a monotheistic religion, just like we are. They're monotheistic. They just believe God has come down a lot to help humanity. And I talked about the whole Sita Hanuman Ram today on the Dark Outpost. The Ramayana is one of the most fantastic books you will ever read. And Hanuman is the monkey god. And Sita, so in this story, Ram marries this woman named Sita. And there's this 10-headed demon named Ravana who lives on Sri Lanka. And he's this 10-headed demon. You cut one head off and another one just grows back. Beast that can't be slain. And he kidnaps Sita. And he brings Sita over to Sri Lanka. And so Ram hires Hanuman, who's also military. Tuesday is Hanuman's day. That's Mars. That's the war, the planet of war. So he hires Hanuman to help him find Sita. Well, Hanuman in this time is the son of Vishnu, and Vishnu is one of the in Hinduism they have a triad, just like we have Father, Son, Holy Spirit in the Christian faith. They have Vishnu, Brahma, Shiva, the triad as well. Very similar, right? And so Hanuman though forgets who he is. He forgets he's the son of Vishnu. And so Ram hires him though to find Sita. And in the time that he's looking for Sita, he all of a sudden remembers who he is. He remembers that he has these extraordinary powers because he's the son of Vishnu. And so he's able to jump from the shores of India all the way to Sri Lanka to find Sita. And he finds her. He finds her in the woods. She's been held captive. And so he now has to go. He very easily could just take Sita and kidnap her back to Ram, but that's not going to fix the problem because Ravana is just going to come looking for her again. So he realizes he's got to go up against Ravana. Well, you can read the story. He does defeat Ravana and he brings Sita back to Ram. So let's look at this metaphorically. Ram is God. Sita is our soul. Ravana is our ego. Hanuman is our courage. And so when we remember who we are, when we remember that we are children of the Most High, that we have that spark of life inside of us, then we can do anything. We have courage. And the biggest demon we're ever going to fight is our own ego. Because our own ego is what keeps us, our soul, away from God, away from our connection to our Creator. And so these stories that the church is going to tell you are bad are beautiful stories. What's wrong with that? We all have that courage inside of us because of who we are to fight our own ego so that we can return our soul back to the light, back into the embrace of God. So I don't want anybody to fear these stories. Govinda is Krishna. Govinda was his name as a little boy. Krishna, he became Krishna. Krishna is the Christ. That's the Christ. So what's wrong? Krishna is the avatar in the Bhagavad Gita. He's one of the most loving. He's the Christ. So what's wrong with that? All right. So don't be afraid of any of that. All right. Scrabby Cat, she said, do you have to lay on the floor? You don't. Well, if you're laying on the floor for your whole yoga class, you're not doing yoga. You should be sweating. You should be moving. So on the floor, you lay on the floor at the end because you're allowing the pranic energy to dissipate if you have too much energy from your practice. And the big mistake that people in the West they call it Shavasana. It's not Shavasana. That is so incorrect. It's all called Sukhasana. The Shavasana is actually a very advanced posture where you actually stop your breath. So you go into like a rigor mortis. So it's in the sixth series. So it's called Sukhasana. And if you don't want to do it, you don't have to do it. I love it. It's my favorite part of the whole practice. So, all right. Okay. So Sherry Lynn, you said, can you help explain what to do with these feelings, memories that bubble up from poses in practice, working through them, sitting with them, etc. is not helpful. I know this sounds very elementary, but I'd like your take. And then Claire said, I'm mostly in tears after my practice. So Sherry, it sounds like you don't think it's helpful because it's still happening. And these emotions are going to come up for as long as they need to come up. I talked about today on the Dark Outpost, there was a period of time when like back in 2017, where for 3 months straight, I was crying every single day. I was having such a dark night of the soul. And every single day I found myself in tears. And I just kept going. Okay. Because something was coming up. Something had to be addressed by me. And I just kept practicing. I know it's not comfortable. I know it's not fun. But yoga is not supposed to be comfortable or fun. If you're going to your yoga class to relax, then you're not going to a yoga class. Nowhere in the Yoga Sutras does it say yoga is about relaxing. Nowhere. That's an inversion by the cabal so you don't do your work, so you don't raise your vibration. You're only going to raise that vibration. What does Magdalene tell us in her gospel? You can only ascend if you descend. You have to deal with this. All this emotion, all this bad stuff, these memories coming up, they're not going to go anywhere until you allow them to come up. And it's not going to be one class and done. It's going to take a while. It's going to take a while. And that's okay. You're not the only one that's going to have to, we're all going to have to go through that. That's why we're all in this together. We're all working through this. So just let it happen. Journal. I mean, there was a time when I would literally, when I was working through second series after I had punched the teacher in Kapotasana, every time I would do it, I would have this huge pop come from my chest. Nothing was out of place. Nothing was out of whack. It was my fascia releasing. Then I would get in the car and I would just start bawling, bawling. Something in that heart center was releasing. And thank God I did that and went through that, because guess what? Now my heart is more open to bring in this new timeline. So we have to keep doing this work. We have to. All right. All right. So someone asked, if the floor you're doing yoga on is uneven, sand, grass, etc., would that hurt your back and or body in any way? Yeah, if you're not strong. So if that's actually a really good thing to work with. If you're on uneven surfaces, there you go. Get stronger. Get stronger. If you feel like you're wobbly, pull your core in more. But with that being said, I would not practice outside. The Hatha Yoga Pradikapa, which is another book, it's not Hatha Yoga, guys. It's Hatha Yoga, Sun Moon Yoga. Talks about not practicing outside, because we want to control the energy. We don't want to just like let it go. Like we need to be in a controlled space. Like like if you lay on a mattress, right, the heat from your body stays in the mattress, and that's why you stay warm. But if you lay on the ground without something to lay on, it just goes out into the earth, right? Same thing. I know people like to practice outside. I had this real romantic idea about practicing on the beach once. My mom's family is from the coast of South Carolina. And I was like, when I was in South Carolina, I was like, I'm going to practice on the beach. It's going to be beautiful. Let me tell you something. Sand in your crotch is not fun. So I learned my lesson the hard way with that. But with uneven floor. So when I would go to Philadelphia to practice with David Grieg, he was in the old district by the Liberty Bell. And so he was up a couple of floors. In those old buildings, the floors were very uneven. But you just have to get stronger. It's asking you to get stronger. So see, if you are on an uneven floor, see that as an opportunity. Again, here we go. This is something to work with. This is that opportunity for you to get stronger. You're never going to be strong enough. Just keep getting stronger. I still work on my strength every single day. All right. So somebody said, thank you, Bryce, the Bible thumpers who actively call us witches for teaching yoga. I'm baptized and love JC. One love. Absolutely. Joshua ben Joseph was a huge proponent of yoga. Okay. Somebody said, why do fat girls who do not perform yoga wear yoga pants? I don't know. You'll have to ask them. Yoga pants are really comfortable. So, I'm going to have to put on a pair of skinny jeans this weekend for a party. And I'm kind of dreading that, but anyway. All right. So now I'm going to go over to YouTube, these questions. Moni said, hi, Bryce. I'm looking forward to this video. I've been doing Sivananda style yoga for about 15 years. But last year, through menopause, I've gained 6 kilos, and twists and inversions don't feel so good, so I leave them out. What's your opinion on doing these? Overweight, temporal menopause, and weight gain are also welcome. Thank you. Okay, well, I haven't gone through menopause, and I'm not someone that has the propensity to really gain a lot of weight. However, I will tell you, I would not stop doing twists and inversions. If you're doing a headstand, and I'm actually going to film a headstand video tomorrow morning for you guys before my practice. But doing a headstand, you should not feel any pressure in your neck. If you are feeling pressure in your neck, you're not strong enough. And so I'll show you in the video tomorrow. Then you just don't bring your legs up, right? Because the inversion is about flipping your energy. It has a lot to do with Kundalini coming down to Shumna and the spine from the pelvic floor. It also is about draining your lymphatic system, all that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of great benefits to inversions. The only time I would not have a woman do an inversion is when they're on their cycle. There's a famous Iyengar quote where he said, because Iyengar said, if a woman has a heavy cycle, she should just do a headstand to slow it down. And I'm like, obviously a man would say this, right? No woman wants to slow her cycle down, right? Get it out. Get it out. So Melanie, Kundalini is in all forms of yoga. Kundalini is in the pelvic floor. So it's in the pelvic floor. It lives like right in this pelvic floor region of your body, like right in that base area. And it's represented by like a little snake that swirls around. And it just kind of lays dormant. And the more we move the body and awaken the subtle body, it's going to start to move up the spine, which is the nadi of Sushumna. And that goes into your, like the eyes or the tops of the spine. So it gives into your sixth and seventh chakra system here, which brings enlightenment. And enlightenment needs to come slowly. Um, the sutras talk about prativa, a flash of illumination. Yes, Stephanie, you can just put your legs up the wall for a lymphatic drain. I have heard putting her legs up the wall. That's what I do when I'm on my cycle. And I only take the first 2 days off of my cycle, and then I practice after that, and I'll put my legs up the wall so that my uterus isn't getting tilted. It's just the legs that are getting their lymphatic drain. And also, I would say too, if you've been doing Sivananda yoga for 15 years, awesome. That's a traditional yoga. But if you feel like you need a jump start, maybe try Ashtanga. Maybe switch over to Ashtanga or Iyengar and see if that doesn't jumpstart your body into a different patterning. I hope that makes sense. But don't stop doing twists. Don't stop doing inversions. Just adapt to the changes. All right. So, hi, what are your thoughts on practicing 108 Surya Namaskars as a daily workout for mind, body, and spirit at home? I've been doing this for 2 weeks now and feel so much stronger. Thank you. Love your content. Thank you so much. And girl, if you're doing 108 Surya Namaskars every single day, you're a badass because that's a lot to do. I know people who do 108 Surya Namaskars. For those who don't know, 108 is a very sacred number in spiritual world. That's how many meridians are in the body. But they'll only do them on like the solstices to generate that change. If that's working for you right now and you're digging it, then just keep doing it if that's something you like. But if it gets to the point where it's not enough and you need to do more shapes with your body, try Ashtanga. We start with 5 Surya Namaskar A, and traditionally 5 Surya Namaskar B, but some people do 3, right? It's kind of like warming you up. All right, let's see here. Can you show us for beginners to start with at home? Does age have anything to do with starting yoga? Like, what should we start with? Age has absolutely nothing to do with yoga. Again, Brenda, if you can find a teacher, find a teacher. But I will be posting something on the community tab, a link to someone I know who has a half primary series. That's where I would start, but I would literally only start with the sun salutation. So watch him teach Surya Namaskar A and Surya Namaskar B and just work with that every day, kind of like what Elaine is doing with 108 sun salutations. Start with that. All right, just started working at it from home. Any suggestions or recommendations would be greatly appreciated. Again, Jackie, if you can find a teacher, find a teacher. And I know, again, I know we're in a very weird situation with our world right now, so there's a little bit of give here, but you really do need a teacher. If you have the ability, to get a teacher, please get one, because so much can go wrong without someone watching you practice. Okay. So, but I will be putting up a link to a YouTube on the community tab if that absolutely is not possible. All right. Rookie here. Where do I start? We have begun our yoga journey through nutrition and, we have begun our journey through nutrition and mental clarity, meditation and breathing. Now I feel like it is time to begin the next step. After listening to the Reiki video you posted the other day, we definitely want to venture out to one of your suggestions you gave me, but we love an at-home yoga option to begin our journey. Again, Angela, if you could start with a teacher, start with a teacher. I really want to stress that, guys. Like, even though I'm going to put a link on the community tab, I really need to stress that to you guys. If you have the ability to start with a teacher, start with a teacher. Okay, so much can go wrong without a teacher, including the ego getting out of hand, including avoiding things that you don't need to be avoiding because you have a blind spot. We all have blind spots. But I will put a link up. All right, let's see here. What can you recommend for someone who has brittle bones due to chemo, diabetes, and a history of hip and pelvic fractures? Kind of hard to get down on the floor. So, Roberta, I actually broke my sacrum back in 2016. I continue to practice. You modify. Oh, hey, Toronto. Hold on. Let me make you a moderator again, Toronto. Let's see. My girl, Toronto. All right. Now you're a moderator again, Toronto. All right. So I broke my pelvis back in 2016, and I continue to practice. I've practiced with a broken wrist, all sorts of stuff, arthritis. You don't stop practicing, but you modify. Okay. And so you definitely, if you're having these issues, you 100% need a teacher. All right. That's going to help you. Okay. Does that make sense? Don't let it stop you. Don't let any of this stop you. I tell my students all the time, if I can do it with all this stuff, so can you guys. All right. All right. I am basically a beginner. Was doing yoga for a few years back, not knowing much about it. Thought yoga was just yoga, but now I'm trying to all trying to understand all the different kinds of yoga and would like to know what is good for tight muscles and flexibility. I was also thinking about doing a yoga retreat in the future, but first I probably need to know the knowledge of the different kinds and correct yoga styles, but also want to know if you can recommend a retreat for beginners. Okay, so again, there's for muscles and flexibility. I mean, yoga is just yoga. If you're in a studio where they have like a Baskin Robbins array of different stuff, you should probably find a different place because that's not correct. That's not correct. Every practice should open everything and work through everything, right? And most important is the mind. Now, as far as retreats, I don't know of retreats because we don't do retreats in Ashtanga. We do intensives. So I don't know. I mean, when I had like my teacher, David Garrigues, is coming to Atlanta in the fall, and I'm bringing him back, and it's intense. Like it's an intensive. You're so sore, and you're doing philosophy classes, and all it's a jam packed weekend. And so there's no. Again, we have to remember, guys, if you're going to yoga to relax, or if you're taking a yoga class that's based around relaxation, that's not a yoga class. It's not a yoga class. Remember, the controllers have inverted everything. And you don't learn. You don't work through your shadow side if you're relaxing. Yeah. So I would really be careful with these retreats. And if that's something you're still interested in, first develop a practice. First figure out what works for you in practice, then go from there. Because I don't want anybody getting scammed. And I'm not saying that all retreats are scams. I'm just saying that for a beginner who is being blindsided by the spiritual manipulation, we'll say, of fake yoga, to spend all that money, because retreats can be a lot of thousands of dollars, and it be a scam. Okay. You're not really learning the real yoga. I mean, what you would pay for a retreat is the same you would pay to go to India for months at a time and really learn. So, yeah, so I would just start from the beginning before you even go on a retreat or anything like that. Just start from the beginning, find your practice, find a teacher, and then go from there. Okay. All right. Is there a resource list for the types of yoga you do, a list of state countries where you can find a real and good instructor? Funny enough, Ashtanga Yoga Atlanta, we were working on a page before the lockdown happened where we were going to put all of our friends um, and their shalas all over the world so people could see like where everybody was in the world. But we never got to do that. And there is supposed to be a list at my school in India, but their website is down right now. They're rebooting it and it's India, so it might not be back up for another year, where they have all the teachers. Again, I would just look at bios on websites. And if the teacher doesn't have a teacher themselves, that's the big red flag. Every teacher should have an actual teacher, not a training program, a teacher, an actual name, and then research that teacher, right? So if you're reading my bio says that I'm authorized by KPJYI, Sharat Joyce, and I also was a student of David Greek. Well, you can go look up David Greek. You can go look up Sharat Joyce. You can trace their lineage back to Guruji, to Patabi Joyce, who then traces his lineage back to Krishnamacharya. He was a student of Krishnamacharya. So you can track where my education is coming from. If you can't track where someone's education is coming from and who they're accountable to, then you're in trouble. All right. Okay, so that's the best place to start, is just look at the people's resume. All right. Excuse me. My husband is an amputee, both legs mostly gone. Does missing body parts affect the energy flow ability to release and heal? I know feet are important and he has none. He can't do much yoga, and I feel his amputations might have taken more just physically from him. Aren't there chakras in the feet? I can't remember. Yes, there are chakras in the feet, and your husband still has them. So remember, the chakras are energetic body, not physical. So even though his legs are missing, his energetic body is still there. Okay. So they're not gone. The chakras are not gone. Now, if he is emotionally struggling with being an amputee, the first thing I would recommend as a teacher is that he find a therapist and possibly a support group. Okay. Um, Melanie, hold on one second. I just call this comment. Meditation. So no. Meditation, you're not trying to create anything. You're not trying to awaken anything. You're just trying to focus your mind. Okay. You're not manifesting, nothing like that. You're just bringing the mind to a one pointed focus so it can like find the Narodaha. Kundalini happens over a long period of time. Okay, it doesn't happen at once. It happens over the awakening of Kundalini is a long process. And so just start doing your yoga practice, and that's where you're gonna start to awaken Kundalini. It's not a one shot and you're done. If it were that way, it would be a disaster. Absolute disaster. So it's a slow process. Think about the awakening we've all been through. It's been a slow process, right? Because if it happened overnight, it would be traumatic. Yeah. So it's a slow process. So don't think it's just going to happen like that. Meditation is literally just to focus the mind. So start Melanie, if you're really interested in awakening Kundalini, just start a yoga practice and go from there for sure. All right, let me get back to the amputee question. So yes, first, if I was a teacher and he came to my class and I noticed he had a lot of emotional issues around losing both legs, which is totally understandable, I would send him to a therapist, a trauma therapist, first and foremost. Now, as far as him, he absolutely can do yoga. Absolutely. Just because he's amputee does not mean that he can't do yoga. If is he breathing? Is his heart beating? He can do yoga. I know two people who are amputees. You know how I know those two people? Through Ashtanga yoga. That's how I met them. One, I practiced with every single day, and he had his fake leg. He practiced stronger than I did. So that's not an excuse. That is not an excuse not to practice. Even if he doesn't have e trapeze classes, Ramona, are not yoga classes. They could be fun. I think a trapeze class would be a fun class, but it's not a yoga class. Okay. Um, with the amputee situation, if he doesn't have fake legs, he can be there's modifications that can be made. Because remember, yoga is not about performing. It's not about gymnastics. He's not trying to be a Cirque du Soleil star. He's just working on himself. Why do you, it's okay. I mean, like I said, our strongest student at AYA has cerebral palsy. When he does his sun, one of his arms doesn't work. When he does his sun salutations, instead of both arms coming up, he has to take one hand and literally pull the other arm up. We just make it work. And actually, if you look at his situation the way my teacher David Greek would look at his situation, David Greek would see him as an incredible opportunity. Because wow, that's something that you really get to work with. That's a huge resistance. That's an opportunity, right? So first things first, I would get him into therapy, get him into trauma therapy or with a support group. There's a lot of great support groups online too. And then I would find a teacher that can work with him and let him know his chakras are still there. His chakras didn't go. How about yoga from Krishnamacharya is the my teacher was a student of Krishnamacharya. Okay. So Krishnamacharya, he brought yoga to the Western world. He was the one that kind of made yoga popular outside of India. So Krishnamacharya is a person, not a style. All right. So chakras are still there. They didn't go anywhere. You don't lose your feet and chakras go with them. They're still there. Okay. So they're still there. He can still connect with those chakras. So Vanessa, is there a yoga instructor in my area that has your certification or teach it? I live outside Toronto in the Durham region, please. Toronto is good, but closer to Durham, the better. I don't know much about Durham, Vanessa, but there's a shit ton of teachers in Toronto. There are so many authorized. You have your pick in Toronto. Actually, I'm friends with a lot of them. If you're close to Hamilton, there's one in Hamilton as well. My best friend lives in Hamilton, right outside of Toronto, and a cousin is in Hamilton. But just Google Ashtanga authorized teacher. It's Toronto. You're gonna find so many different shalas. Okay. All right, Bo. I've never done yoga. I'm 60 plus years old. Where do you recommend I start? I recommend you start at a class. Just go to a class. You're breathing. So that's going to be the theme of this channel because we know we're going to be living to like the year 400, right? So all of us are just spring chickens right now. If your heart is beating and you are breathing, you are young enough to go take a yoga class. All right. Yeah, funny, found a site in my area claiming to teach Krishnamacharya stuff. No, Krishnamacharya is just a person. I don't think they understand what they're saying. Just my opinion. But my teacher was a student of Krishnamacharya. All right. All right. Do you know anything about chair yoga for handicapped or elderly people? No. Yeah, I would just go to a Mysore class and let's start from there, okay? Because just because you think you're elderly doesn't mean that you are incapable. All right. So we got to stop this thinking that just because there's an issue, if there's a disability, like you have an amputee or you have cerebral palsy or you're older, this is limited thinking. This is deep state thinking that I can't do something because of X, Y, and Z. We got to get rid of that, right? You have to be Hanuman. Find your courage. You are a child of the Most High. You have that spark of life in you. Find a teacher, go to a class, go from there. I believe in you. I believe in you guys. You guys can, if I can do this, anybody can do this. All right. I'm close to 60. I'm a woman, if that even matters. I want to learn, but a little intimidated. I prefer to start at home. Obviously, I'm a beginner. I haven't exercised in years, but I do house cleaning for a living, so I'm active. When I'm ready to venture out, are there any yoga teachers you would recommend in Winter Park and Palm Coast, Florida areas? Thank you for being you. You are loved all. Thank you. I love you guys too. Yeah, Florida's got a lot of teachers. You're lucky. We always laugh because in the Shala in India, there's a bunch of white people in there that are from all over the world. The people, there's three of us from Georgia, there's one person from Alabama, and there's a shit ton of people from Florida. And we are the only white people in that shala that can handle the heat. So there's two temperatures in the shala in India: windows open, windows closed. That's it. And it gets so hot and humid. And those, bless their hearts, those people from like Copenhagen, they start like swaying. Oh, okay. So, okay. Also, I'll address this. I just saw that. Yeah, I'll address the moon cycles in a second. So the people from Copenhagen, they like start swaying in the heat. They get all flushed. But the people from Florida and Georgia and Alabama, we can handle it because we're from the Sun Belt. So you've got a lot of teachers in your area. So just Google Ashtanga authorized teachers. So you got to Google and you'll find different shalas. Okay. Um, Again, if I know it's intimidating to start a class, but don't be intimidated. It's just a school. It's just a yoga school, and everybody in there at one point was a beginner. At one point was a beginner. And so why are you into, don't worry about it. The teachers aren't going to care. I don't care. I love having beginners. Beginners are the easiest to teach. Are you kidding me? There's a thing we say. Beginner and advanced students are the easiest to teach because they know nothing. It's the intermediate student that's the real asshole that thinks they know everything. Okay. So you are on the, as a beginner, you're at the same stage as an advanced student because you know nothing and you're able to be taught. Okay. So let's see here. Let's see. All right. I am old and overweight. How do I start? Spare a rose. You just start, darling. That's all you do. Age doesn't matter. The weight will change. You just start. Just start. All right. So Valerie, you said I just basically want to get started, but I can't afford a teacher right now. Can you recommend any videos on YouTube or get me started? Yeah, I'm going to put a video again, but with the money situation, just talk to a shala in your area. They usually will work it out with you. It's not that big of a deal. Okay. A lot of people are in this situation right now. We have literally had the rug pulled out from under us as a humanity. And so many people are in this situation. We have a lot of students at AYA right now, and I think at the other place too that are doing working out things with us, right? Or with the business to pay for tuition. Yeah. So, business owners are humans too. And so all you need to do is go and talk to them or call them and ask if they have a karma program. If there's a way you can like help them with, laundry or mopping the floors or advertising for them or answering the phones at the front desk or something. Like if they have anything like that, or if there is like a scholarship program that you can apply to be a part of. All right. But with that being said, I will post a YouTube link. Now let's talk about moon cycles. So I'm assuming, are you talking about your period with moon cycle? So I missed that comment. So if you guys let me know, is it the period she's talking about? No. Okay. You're talking about full moon and new moon then. Okay. So full moon and new moon, we take off of practice on full moon and new moon. This is because the moon cycle or the moon affects we're mostly water. So we're like the ocean. You see how the moon affects the ocean, right? So that affects us too. So for we actually signed a contract in India, like where we would close our shala for full moon and new moon. Now, how do you find that practice? So a lot of teachers will make this mistake. They'll look at the calendar. Let's say that the moon, the calendar says, let's say the moon is at its peak, a full moon. Let's say it's a full moon, and it's at its peak fullness at 11:57 p.m. on a Monday night. Well, the calendar is going to show you that that Monday is the full moon because it's at 11:57 at night. Our responsibility is to see the, oh, thank you. You guys are awesome too. Is to see where the peak of the full moon is and then find the closest practice to that peak and cancel that classes. So if the full moon is at its peak at 11:57 p.m. on a Monday night, the Tuesday is then going to become the moon day. All right. So somebody's been really messing with my throat today. So with that being said, it's not do or die. Like if you do practice on a moon day, it's not that big of a deal. But the kind of the theory behind it is your ego is a little screwed up because of your water in your body, and the moon's messing with it. And then as teachers, we might not adjust as properly on moon days. Full moon to me is way more potent than new moon. New moon people are usually just a little bit tired because the moon is dark. So that's kind of the logic behind that. It's just one day though. Now, women, as far as your period, women, we do call that your moon cycle. And most women do bleed around either new or full moon. I'm a full mooner, which means back in the day I would have been burned at the stake for being a witch, which is fine. I've probably been burned many lives, so it's fine. But so for me with my cycle, like I take the first couple of days off, first two. The first 3 days is when the uterus is contracting the most. And usually after that, it's just residual. So it's not really affecting your cycle, especially if you haven't had children and you possibly want to have children. Like I would just kind of be aware of that with menopause as well. I know somebody asked about menopause. You still want to honor that. So if you don't have your cycle anymore, you're still a female, you're still a ponic. So find when your cycle would be and then take those days off and let your body relax and rest. Just because you don't have a period anymore does not mean that you're not still in that energy, if that makes sense. All right. Okay, guys, I think that, yeah, Keith, you got to learn about the female cycle. You know what? Okay, I was telling this to Stephanie the other day. When I was in high school, I had this like irrational fear as a high schooler. This is around the time that weird things started happening anyway. That if I ever had a little girl, that something was going to happen to me and her dad was going to have to raise her without me. And I made up my mind that if I ever had a daughter, that man was going to get schooled on periods, on how to do hair, on how to curl hair, how to braid hair, how to shave legs. I was going to teach him all this stuff. So if something happened to me, he could do that with the daughter. Well, then I learned in one of my past lives recently that I did that happened to me. My little girl was born and I died, and she had to be raised by her father. So I guess that's where that came from. So it's okay for men to learn about this stuff, right? So a lot of men in the Ashtanga world are very comfortable with ladies' periods because it's a huge topic. It's a huge topic that comes up a lot in the Ashtanga world. So anyway, so somebody said about doshas, no, it doesn't really affect the kind of yoga you practice. Not really. Whatever yoga again is yoga. So I mean, I'm Vata Pitta. I practice Ashtanga. A lot of my friends are Pitta Kapha. They practice Ashtanga. Or Vata Kapha. They practice Ashtanga. It's going to result in a different type of reaction to the practice and how we teach. So, like, if I have a student who's Vata, like me, I know they're going to be high anxiety. So I teach them differently. So I'm a calmer in the way that I teach them. If I have a kappa, then I have to be a little bit more aggressive with a kappa because they're lazier. Their propensity is to be a little bit lazier. So, sorry guys, I had a little thing pop up on my screen here. I got to get down. So does that make sense? But if I have like a Vata Pitta like myself, I can get a little bit too, I need to be pulled back a little bit. So does that make sense? So it literally just affects more how you're taught, not what you do, right? If that makes sense. So I would definitely see an Ayurvedic practitioner for that. And Ayurveda is the sister science of yoga. So, all right, guys, we're over an hour now. I did not mean to go over an hour. I was just going to try to keep this an hour, but I'm kind of looking through some of the comments here. If there's anything I missed, you guys got to learn about periods. You got to learn about the 3 traditional yogas. We've got some of the books in the links here, the Marnie Alton stuff in the links here. And you guys, my moderators did a kick-ass job. We have Stephanie from Spiritual Perspectives of Our Great Awakening. Please go check out her channel. We've got Ava from Queen Midas Life Alchemist. Please go check out her channel. And we've got my friend Natalie from Questioning the Narrative. Please go check out her channel. And my friend Toronto, who doesn't have a channel, but she's a kick-ass researcher and she does a lot of research with me. So give her a lot of kudos too from her time spent digging and researching too. So, all right, guys. So I think I'm gonna. Oh, you said I'm beginning to do yoga, but after doing it, my whole body cramps up and I'm very painful. Maybe no, that's probably just your body detoxing. Yeah. If YT Hill, Bonnie, is that your name? If you have a teacher, talk to your teacher about it. But to me, that seems like something that is probably your body's probably detoxing. So just talk to your teacher though about it because I'm not there to see what's actually happening. So I can't totally say for sure, but I would definitely talk to your teacher about it. Okay. About what's going on. But it sounds like it's detox. Okay, Jessica, you just saw an ad for paddleboard yoga. I mean, could be fun, but just don't take it seriously. I love paddleboarding. I really love paddleboarding, but I'm not going to do my yoga practice on a paddleboard. Um, I mean, and that's what I'm saying. Like, if you want to go to a vinyasa flow class, they can be fun, but just understand that's why you're going. You're going for fun, right? You just have to knowledge is power. What is it? Knowledge is power, knowledge protects, and knowledge is infinite, right? So we're always learning, and the more we have, the more we're protected. Um, yeah, no evil spirits are coming in. Listen, there are way more evil spirits in that church than I've ever seen in a yogashala. Um, you saw my video with Shanti Altateria. Isn't that documentary wild? I know Stephanie's seen that documentary. It's like 6, 7 hours, but holy shit. Like, I have a theory, and I could be totally wrong, but I think the guy who did that documentary is an off-worlder. I think he's faking a British Cockney accent to sound human, but he knows a shit ton. And I was like, I just don't think he's human, and nobody knows what he looks like, right? I could be wrong, but that's just my theory. All right. Yeah, you're right, Natalie. We are taught to push down our emotions instead of let them flow, and you need to let them flow and come out. All right. Let's see here. Okay. I think I got everything, guys. Well, thank you guys for sitting through this hour and a half live. My throat, somebody really doesn't want me talking today. Um, I'm going to sign off now because, yes, knowledge is power. Knowledge protects. Knowledge is infinite. Um, so I'm going to sign off now, guys, because it's been about an hour and a half, and I know you guys all have lives, and you probably don't want to sit around and talk about yoga all night. So, oh, what's with the goats? Oh my God, I'll tell you guys this story before I sign off. So, goat yoga is just so embarrassing. There's this like free yoga magazine in Atlanta, and they come around and put it at your studios and stuff. And we have a lot of Indian students at our shala because it's real yoga, right? They know they come to us, and they dropped off this magazine, dropped off all these copies one day, and the cover was about goat yoga, and they got so offended because it's part of their culture. And so I had to call the magazine company and ask them not to bring their magazines around anymore because they really offended the Hindu population at our shala. So I like goats though. Goats are funny. Again, thank you so much, Sandy, for this beautiful necklace. I will be putting up your Etsy shop on my community tab and probably up on Twitter too. So, all right, you guys, I love you all. Thank you guys so much for sitting through this. Maybe we can do more lives in the future. I have to figure out how to simulcast. So maybe we can even get Ava and Stephanie up here reading some cards for you guys at some point if I can figure out how to simulcast. I'm kind of stupid when it comes to technology sometimes. So anyway, I hope you guys have a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful night. This video will be logged in the library if you need to go back and relook at some stuff. And I will again be putting up the links very, very soon. If I don't get them up tonight, I will definitely get them up tomorrow for you guys. Love you guys. Thank you so much to all of my moderators. You guys are kick-ass women, and I love you all very, very much. And I'll talk to you guys all soon. Bye.